afternoon. So for work, I tell stories. I tell stories about businesses, about organizations. I want to start with telling each of you a story. This is a story about an old man who was very kind-hearted, who loved solving problems. And so he went to his doctor one day, and the old man asked his doctor, "Doc, I think I'm having problems with my wife. I think she's having hearing problems." And the doc said, "Why do you think that?" And he replied, "Well, I ask her questions and she doesn't respond. I think she can't hear me. Is there something you can prescribe, a self-diagnosis, that I can go back and do myself? I want to solve this problem." And the doctor said, "There's actually something very simple you can do. You can go back home, stand several feet away from your wife and ask her a question, and then approach closer and ask the same question until she responds, and that way you can find out the extent of her hearing loss." Very excited to be finally working on a solution to the problem, the old man rushes back home, finds his wife making supper, and stands about 20 feet away from her and asks, "Honey, what's for supper?" No response. So he moves up 5 feet, same question, still no response. He moves up again, 5 more feet, same question, still no response. Then he moves up 5 more feet until finally he's just 5 feet away from his wife and asks for the 4th time, "Honey, what's for supper?" And she responds. For the 4th time, it's pasta. Good afternoon, Rotarians. It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Director Basker, for the wonderful invitation to be here. I want to take this time to thank my speaker's aides, Binodin, and also his wife, Vijashri, who goes by Shri. They're over there. They've been so wonderful to me. And they gifted to me yesterday a book of wisdom. I'm going to try to pronounce it. I hope I get it right. The Thirkupal. Thank you, Vinodin. And in this book, and so when he gifted me this book, he told me, "Mitty, this is a book that's been passed down for many generations, and you can find every answer to life in this book. If you ever have a question, look in this book." And so I did a little bit of reading, and I found this saying in the book: "Listening is the wealth of wealth. It is the crown of all wealth. Wealth acquired by listening is the wealth of wealth, and it's the greatest of all wealth." I think we can take this lesson and apply it to the old man and to that story. To that story where listening is really important, and it's a key part of communication. But sometimes you need someone from the outside to tell you that you might be part of that problem. Sometimes listening isn't enough. Sometimes you need someone to tell you you might actually be the one with the hearing problem. And so today, I want to share with each of you some stories about my journey in Rotary. But I also want to make sure that by the end of this session, we all become best friends or family, because for me, that's what Rotary is all about. So I'm going to share with each of you, not necessarily a deep, dark secret, but something about myself that I think would leave me a little vulnerable. And I'm going to just share with all of you who are now, you're all my best friends. We're all family now. I'm feeling pretty confident right now because I'm wearing my Lucky Rotary boxers. They're my Rotary underwear. They're blue. And it's got the Rotary Master brand, but in white. And I bought it at a past convention, and I like wearing it at special Rotary occasions. And now that I've shared with you what I'm wearing, you can tell me what you're wearing. I'm kidding, you don't have to do that. Maybe later as we get more drinks. About 29 years ago, I was born in Taiwan. This is my story of my journey to the family that I am part of today. Now, when I was just 2 years old, my parents moved my sister and myself to California. And there we grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. We arrived in California with nothing more than a few suitcases, the bags on our backs. And my parents, although they were college educated, came to a country where they didn't speak the language fluently. They didn't have any friends in the area. They struggled. Growing up, my family always straddled the line between poverty and the middle class. We always had a roof over our table, a bed to sleep on. We always had food on the table, but growing up, I never had video games. I never went on field trips in school because we couldn't afford them. We never went on family vacations because it's something that just wasn't accessible to us. But despite all of that, my parents were some of the hardest working people that I know. I remember in primary school, every day we would go to the warehouse where they would be packing and unpacking boxes, working a hard labor job despite having college degrees. But they did that to put food on the table, and they did that to support us. And a few years later, they recognized the technology boom. They recognized the world of computers, the world of internet, and they saved up and they bought my family a computer. And that was the start, a turning point, a milestone in my life. It was at that point, in the 3rd grade, when I had my first computer and started learning about how websites worked and how to build a website. And it was in 4th grade that eventually I built my first website. And at this point, I'm going to just ask our wonderful Siri back there, thank you. We'll just fast forward one more. Wonderful. Thank you. We'll get this working soon. I built my first website when I was in 4th grade. And at that point, I realized something about innovation. I realized that innovation is that possibility, that potential to change the status quo. That it doesn't matter how young, how old you are, what your background is, but anyone can innovate. I remember selling my first website. I was in the 7th grade at the time. I got this check for $200 US. I was so proud of myself, and I went up to my mom and my dad, and I told them, as you can see in this next slide, Mom, Dad, just got paid with my first check. I'm ready to move out. You can come visit me on weekends. And they told me about the cost of living, about rent, about food, and suddenly all my dreams were quashed. I started realizing that there was a lot of things that they were giving me that I didn't know about. But it was at that point of holding my first check at 12 years old for $200, I realized anything is possible. Anyone can innovate. As we skip a couple slides, these are not really my parents, they're models, and I found them on the internet. I was like, this is a great photo, but it represents it very well. That would be younger Mitty begging. And in the next slide, we'll share a little bit about Interact. Fast forward to high school. When I was first introduced to the Rotary family, I was 15 at the time. And it was from that point that everything changed. You see, I was just wandering around at my high school. We had a student fair, all the clubs were tabling, and a young girl approached me. The young girl said, "How are you doing?" And we struck up a conversation. We started talking. And we talked for 10 minutes and we hit it off. And you have to recognize that 15-year-old Mitty didn't talk to girls normally, and he was awkward, more awkward than I am today. He was nerdier than I am today. But he wasn't full of confidence. He didn't know who he was. And then she asked, "So would you like to have lunch?" And that's the point where, I don't know if you remember when you were 15, but for 15-year-old Mitty, he was very composed. He looked at his calendar and checked to see if he had appointments. But inside, he was like, "Score! Yes!" Because that was the point where he had a conversation and an invitation. And of course, he said yes. And that's when she replied, "Great, it'll be at the Interact meeting in room C120. That was the first time that I was sold something I didn't realize I was buying. It wasn't the last time. But I went to that Interact meeting. And my life changed because someone went out of their way to talk to me, to invite me. My life changed at that moment because, well, I didn't know it, but just simply by showing up, all other doors opened up. Now, Interact taught me service. It was the first time that I did community service, the first time that I volunteered. And I don't know if you know this, but I come from the world's largest Interact district. We have 10,000 Interactors in our district. Every year, they gather together, several thousand Interactors in a gymnasium, and every year, they raise over $140,000 US as high school students for a different charity every single year. No, before I joined Interact, I knew about innovation. I knew about possibilities. But I was only one person. I recognized that there was only so much I could do by myself. And it was after joining Interact that I realized that together, when you're with other like-minded people, you share a same goal, the sky's the limit. Anything is possible. That's what Interact taught me. Interact taught me the lesson of teamwork. And in this next slide, the lesson of teamwork. And in the next slide, I was refined in Rotaract. I spent Well, I still spend, but I spent 8 years of my life in Rotaract before I became a Rotarian. Today I'm a dual member, thanks to recent council legislation amendment or passing. But what Rotaract gave to me was leadership opportunities. You see, I learned about innovation when I was young, and through Interact I learned about teamwork, but it was through my years in Rotaract that I received leadership opportunities that I normally would never have had. Opportunities to speak, opportunities to lead clubs, opportunities to thrive. That's what Rotaract gave to me. The lesson of leadership. This is my life. I told you at the beginning I want to tell you about my journey of how I found my family. I wasn't talking about my blood family, I was talking about my Rotary family. I'm talking about each of you. Because even though I am thousands of kilometers away from home, we're family. I'm amongst family. And that's one of the most powerful things about Rotary that I've learned over the years, over the past 15 years of being in the Rotary family. About half of my life. So let's talk about Rotary. So why did I share my life with each of you? Why did I open up, tell you the color of my underwear, leave myself vulnerable? And part of that is for you to understand that Rotary has given me everything that I did not have. As a youth program alumni, going from Interact, doing RILA, going through Rotaract, now being a Rotarian, a past president for my club, it's because of Rotary that I've had these leadership opportunities. It's because of Rotary that I've learned how to do service. It's because of Rotary that I'm able to travel around the world, meet amazing people I normally would never have the opportunity to sit with, listen to amazing speakers, experience what it means to be a member of the Rotary family, and each of you understand this. That's why you're here today. But it's because of all of this that I feel like it's okay for me to talk to each of you about the future of Rotary, to have, following our frank discussion, the panel, a frank story about membership. Now imagine the year is 100 years from now, the year is 2117. We're in a history class with a young girl. She's reading about the 21st century. As she's reading, she's learning about an organization that cured the sick, fed the hungry, sheltered the homeless. An organization that educated the uneducated, did miracles. An organization that ended polio. She's reading about Rotary. And as she's reading, she's thinking, wow, what a great organization. I wonder how I can become part of Rotary. And as she turns the page, her heart sinks. It's at that point where she starts reading that by the mid-21st century, Rotary was struggling with membership. By the end of the 21st century, the last Rotary Club has shut its doors. The title of the chapter was called The Fall of the Greatest Service Organization in History. Now, as we come back to reality, we recognize that this is a hypothetical situation. It's just as likely in 100 years we will all be part machine. None of this will matter. Arnold Schwarzenegger will still be the Terminator. But at the same time, we have to also recognize that this is a possibility. We have to recognize, as we talk about Rotary, every year we lose about 100,000 members despite every year gaining about 100,000 members. We've been at 1.2 million members since I became an interactor 15 years ago. I'm able to say that number without thought because it's been drilled through my head for half of my life, the entire time I've been in the Rotary family. The same number. We've gone a little bit up and down, but it's been 1.2 million members. Now, as the average age of Rotarians around the world starts climbing, in the United States it's 68, in some other parts of the world it's a little bit higher, Rotary leaders all around the world are starting to recognize we need younger members. We need younger generations to recognize what Rotary is and want to be part of this family. For them to understand the same thing that each of us understands, what it means to be part of this Rotary family. Now, take some of these statistics into your head. Absorb them. Over half of the world's population is under the age of 35. Yet despite that, less than 4% of Rotarians worldwide are under the age of 35. Now, I'm standing before you in a very unique position because normally when I'm talking about membership with Rotarians, I'm talking to Rotary districts and zones where for the past few years they've been declining every single year in membership. Yet here I stand in your zones where every year you've been increasing members. And you're doing a great job, but I still need your help. Because when we think about this, 1 in every 6 people on this planet live in India. By 2020, India will have the largest workforce of young people. The median age of people in India is 28, in Sri Lanka it's 31, and in Nepal it's 22. You have quite a few young people. And every day, more and more young people are born. And despite all that, still worldwide, of reported numbers, less than 4% of Rotarians are under the age of 35. And so we need to start having this conversation, regardless of whether or not in your clubs, in your districts, you're doing well attracting younger generations. I still need your help, and I'll tell you a little bit why. And part of this conversation is recognizing that as the rest of the Rotary world is struggling with membership, you have a unique opportunity here. What you do today, what you do in the next year and the years to come, can change, can elevate, or can leave your Rotary zone stagnant. You have the opportunity right now to seize the ability so that the future of Rotary means that India, means that Sri Lanka, Nepal, your zones are the center of Rotary. You've grown in membership so significantly that the United States zones have lost a seat on the board of directors. We're rezoning because your membership growth is that great. And I'm here to tell you that it shouldn't stop there. I know Director Basker's goal in mind is ambitious, but as we learned yesterday, you have to have big goals. The bigger the goal, right? The more noble the goal. 1% of the population. I ask myself this one question every single day, and I have been for the past few weeks. What more can I do? It isn't a conversation about how many years of experience we have in the Rotary family, our demographics, our aptitude. It comes down to this: what more can I do? as an innovator, as an entrepreneur, as someone who just loves his Rotary family, I always think about what more can I do? What more can I give? Now, innovation is approaching the status quo with new ideas and solutions. And I learned that at a young age, and I shared that with you. But it was really Interact and then Rotaract that taught me about the power of teamwork, about the power of the Rotary family. So what more can I do? Change to what more can we do? And that's the conversation that I want to have with each of you today. As my new best friends, as members of my Rotary family, what more can we do? Now, centuries ago, cartographers used to draw on maps these sea creatures and dragons, and they would also write on these maps, Hic sunt draconis, which meant in Latin, here be dragons. And see a little bit of a dragon on there. You know, this clicker wasn't working and now it's going crazy, but that's exciting. Now, I want to walk through with each of you what these dragons mean. So centuries ago, as these cartographers would draw these dragons, they would represent parts of the world that were unmapped, unexplored. They were the unknown. The dragons, the sea creatures, they represented what people did not know was out there. It represented the unknown. It was a disclaimer to explorers, to adventurers. If you go out there, if you venture out there, be careful. You might not come back alive. Only the brave should go. Be careful. And yet, despite this, adventurers and cartographers, explorers, they continued adventuring around the world, and today we have our map built. Now, the new frontier is a little bit different. It's a digital frontier. A frontier that is expanding every single day. A frontier that's constantly changing. A frontier that's about technology. There's still dragons, the unknowns. And imagine this. They've already been able to put into contact lenses, 8 LED lights and a Wi-Fi receiver. We have in the streets of San Francisco already self-driving cars. We have virtual reality, which will instantly transport you to Cairo, Tokyo, London, wherever you want. And we have augmented reality, where in the future, instead of wearing name badges at a conference, you're going to have your glasses on or your contacts on, and you're going to look at someone, and you'll get their facial recognition. Their Facebook profile will pop up next to them with their name. You'll know exactly what they had for breakfast and for lunch, when they took their last poop. All that information will be available. Because if it's not out there, someone will build that app, right? Technology is advancing so fast that every single day it's outpacing us. It's a frontier that continues growing. And despite all that, we need to embrace this frontier. We need to not be left behind. Rotary needs to make sure that it's not left behind. And so today, we're going to do a quick repeat after me exercise. And I'm going to share with each of you the unofficial fellowship in Rotary of Dragon Slayers. Now, a Dragon Slayer is someone who does not fear change. It's someone who is willing to embrace change, to thrive with it. Someone who isn't afraid of, sometimes, if you have to, breaking down traditions. But someone who is willing to do what's right and what's good for Rotary. Now, In this quick repeat after me exercise, I'm going to say something to you and you're just going to repeat it out loud. I really need all of your participations. I want you to channel that energy we talked about this morning when Swami shared with us that when you say something, you should channel it with your energy. So, I am a dragon slayer. All right, let's try that again. I am a dragon slayer. I am a slayer of dragons. I do not fear the unknown. I do not fear change. What more can I do? What more can we do? This is the best presentation ever. I got a few, thank you. Thank you. Now, imagine once again, as we're talking about change, we recognize that we're thinking about where is Rotary going to be in 100 years. We're thinking about that young girl in that history class in the year 2117, looking back at the legacy that we left behind. We each love this family so much that we're here on a gorgeous day in KL. Not because we don't want to be outside, but because we love Rotary. And because we love Rotary, we want to make sure that our clubs, our districts, our zones are here in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, in 100 years. What we do today, as we are at that crossroads in Rotary history, everything we do today and for the days and the years that come will shape how Rotary is for the rest of the 21st century. We talk about making history with ending polio, and we do, and we will make history. But we also have to talk about making Rotary history with what you do today. Because decades from now, what you do this Rotary year and the next Rotary year will either pay dividends for decades to come or won't. Now, Dragon Slayers, I want to share with each of you our belief. It's simple: adapt to survive, embrace change to thrive. And our creed is even more simple: be proactive and ask, what more can I do? When you wake up, ask, what more can I do? As you walk around the Institute the rest of the weekend, think about this question: what more can I do? What more can I do for my club, for my district, for my zone, for Rotary? Now, 4 quick lessons on attracting the next generations into Rotary. And I recognize that in many of your districts, you are attracting young generations. You're doing a great job. I recognize for some of your districts, you could do a better job. But this is where I need your help. And that is, I need you to share your stories, your success stories. The fact that you're recruiting people under the age of 35, I need you to share that with your peers, your governor classmates, with every Rotarian in the world that will listen to you. Because the truth is, outside of your zones, Rotary membership isn't doing that well. We need encouragement. We need to hear about your success stories. We need to hear about how many of you were interactors one day and you were a Rotaractor, and today you're sitting here as a Rotarian, a distinguished Rotarian. We need to hear those stories. Because the truth is, those stories are rare. They're not that common around the world, and we need your inspiration. Lesson number 1 is simple. First impressions are critical. Now, 15 years later from becoming part of the Rotary family, When I went for my first Interact meeting, I don't remember what was said, I don't remember who was there, but I can tell you right now, I remember how they made me feel. The human mind captures and creates an impression subconsciously of everything you encounter within the first 3 seconds. You have 3 seconds to make an impression. That's true of things you see, that's true of people you meet. Now, how people make each other feel, how you make someone feel, how your club makes someone feel, that's something that lasts for a very long time. So remember this. People always remember how you made them feel, how you make them feel. Imagine your Rotary Club meetings and your club events. Imagine all the 5 senses as someone's walking in there. What are they listening to? Is there laughter and music? What do they feel? The warm embrace of a handshake, a hug, or nothing at all? What do they smell? Is it something good, something delicious, or nothing at all? Imagine all those senses and put yourselves in the shoes of a guest. Lesson number 2, psychographics, not demographics. Now this is a lesson that I learned the west coast of the USA in our zones. We put on a young professional summit. We gathered from every single district in our zones 3 young Rotarians and also 3 district leaders from every single district. We have over 100 people for a 2-day event, and we split them up the first day. On day 1, the average age of one room was 28, the average age of the other room was 68. We asked them the same questions. Why do you think young people are not joining Rotary? Do you think it's too expensive? Do you think it's because they're not ready? Do you think it's because some club traditions, part of Rotary, turn them off or make them not want to join? And we thought when they came together on the second day that the answers would be completely different. And on that second day when we came together for those answers and everyone put up their giant posters, we found the answers were the same. It didn't matter that the ethnicities, the age, the industry you work in, the geographic location, any of the demographics, none of that mattered. None of it mattered that people were different. What did matter was how people thought, how people think, their psychographics. It mattered because when you put like-minded people together, you can get along. That's why I have many friends in Rotary who are cross generations. And that's why some of the best mentors in history have been multi-generational. And as we're talking about this, I want you to think about young Rotarians under the age of 35. I also want you to think about Rotaractors. I want you to think about people not in the Rotary family who are under 35. Who are not family to you, not blood family, but imagine how many of them you can name. How many can you name, you know their first name and also what they do for a living? And ask yourself this question. Have you ever invited them to one of your Rotary events? Have you invited them to become a Rotarian one day? Because in an organization where we have Rotaractors all around the world, our worldwide conversion rate from Rotaract to Rotary is less than 4%. In an organization where we have a youth program for 18 to 30 that's perfect to feed into Rotary, we're not inviting them to the table. Rotaractors need that invitation to the table, but they surely can sit at it. It starts with you because if not you, then who? What more can you do? Lesson number 3, build a yes and culture. Yes and is an improv exercise that's dedicated to making sure that you support your fellow actors. In improv, everything falls apart when you don't support your fellow actors. If someone just said, "It's a sunny day out here," and the next person says, "No, it's not," that ruins the improv exercise. Now we need to take a lesson from yes and we need to apply it to our clubs. Let me tell you a story about Jane. Jane was an Interact district governor. She led her own peers, fellow interactors, 25 of them. Every month they met. She put on an Interact conference of 4,000 interactors. She raised $140,000 that year, US dollars, for charity. She went to international convention for Rotary. She spent hundreds of hours doing service projects for Interact. And then she graduated. And this is the part of the story where usually she graduates and she goes out of the district, but she stayed in the same district. And this is the part of the story where usually when they go to a university, there might not be a Rotaract club they like, or there isn't a Rotaract club at all and they disappear. But Jane wanted to start a Rotaract club. She wanted to continue her experience. She gathered 25 of her peers at university and they were ready to start the Rotaract club. And you think this is probably a success story, but this isn't. This is a story where we failed Jane. This is a story because the chair for Rotaract in the district did not believe that there should be university-based Rotaract clubs because there was a history that many of them had failed in the district. And so he told her a very simple 2-letter word: no. This very simple 2-letter word became something that extinguished Jane's passion, her flame. So often in Rotary do we face people who say no. No to new ideas. No to strange ideas. No to innovation. No, we learned yesterday that sometimes you have to break tradition. I'm here to suggest to you that the next time you're about to say no, instead of saying no, say yes and let me think about that for 24 hours. Yes and let me bring that to the board of directors. Or yes and let's think about it for a week and come back to it. Or yes and I think that's a great idea. Let me support you. How can we change our culture of no into a culture of yes and? What more can I do? Lesson number 4, our final lesson. Take charge of your digital presence. Now this is a lesson that I've been talking about for many years, and yet many years later, a lot of the Rotary clubs I've talked to still have websites that don't look great. And part of this challenge is websites change every year and a half. And as we ask ourselves how many people know about Rotary, we have to recognize that in today's world, people will Google just about any question. They'll search online. They'll search for service organizations, for business organizations. They'll search for restaurant recommendations, for travel. Everything that you might have a question about, they'll search online. So if they search service club and your city's name, or business club, your city's name, does your club appear on the first page? If not, then why? Take this number into account. Every day, over 250,000 babies are born. Now these babies, by the age of 2 or 4, if you put an iPad in front of them, they're going to know how to use it. They're growing up in a world surrounded by technology, surrounded by the internet. Sure, maybe not having a great looking website today does not make or break Rotary, but I guarantee you, in 2 decades, in 4 decades, in 100 years from now, if your Rotary website is not up to date, if it doesn't look great, it doesn't attract people, your club's not going to be around. And so ask yourself this question. Would someone visiting your Rotary Club website, just by visiting it alone, would they want to come to one of your events? Would they want to come to a club meeting? What does your club website look like? I've been using this example for a couple of years, and I think they recently changed their website because their club president was in the audience one day, and it was a great conversation. But this is the Rotary Club of Tucson's website. What's your first impression? 3 seconds. Imagine that. Their mascot's a cactus. They meet in the desert. Something about a Rotary something in the desert. At least I know it's the Rotary Club of Tucson, right? My first 3 seconds of impression. That's all I know. Because as you scroll down on that page, it doesn't tell you more. It doesn't tell you about what Rotary is, why you should join their club. And that's why we need visually stunning public-facing pages. We need our websites to talk to guests, to talk to prospective members, to talk to people who want to learn more about Rotary. We need our websites to have, in the first 3 seconds, a stunning photograph that describes what your club is all about. Maybe it's one of your projects. Maybe it's something you're proud of. And as they scroll down, they should learn more about the organization. Maybe they see which of your local leaders are part of your club, some testimonials, and visual representations of why someone would want to join Rotary. Maybe you feature one of your projects. Now, I've also had many Rotarians tell me that they don't have time for websites or social media, and we haven't talked about social media, but being active on there is important. And so this is a suggestion I have to each of you. Get an intern. Because in today's world, it's not good enough to say, I'm going to pass. It's not good enough that we get left behind. We're family, we're best friends, so I can tell you, I want this organization to be here in 100 years. When I am decades older from where I am today, I want this organization to be thriving. Not just growing, I want it to be thriving. An organization where we're doing projects everywhere in the world and people recognize those projects. And the only way I can make sure that happens is to make sure that each of you, each of us, works together. So think about getting an intern. It could be an interactor, it could be a Rotaractor, it could be a college student, it could be a young professional, and in exchange for the internship, maybe send them to the next Rotary National Convention, all expenses paid. Send them somewhere where they're going to experience Rotary, the family of Rotary, an opportunity for them to travel. And in exchange, they manage your club website for the entire year. Now, as I wrap up and review the lessons, I want to do one final thing, because I always ask myself this question: what more can I do? And so today, I want to ask each of you, what more can we do? So I want you to take out your smartphones. Go ahead, take them out right now. If you have, how many of you have WhatsApp? A few of you, right? Half of you. Most. The other half just didn't want to raise your hand. So open up WhatsApp right now. Which is kind of weird, right? You're probably thinking, am I texting him? And so here's what I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share with you my personal cell phone number, which is also my WhatsApp number. And so a few weeks ago, someone inspired me that, Mitty, every day you should do something that scares you. I'm going to be honest, this scares me a lot. So I'm going to give you my personal phone number, my cell phone number. It's a US number, but on WhatsApp it's free, right? So you can text me. And here is my challenge to you. And this is the reason why I'm giving you my phone number. My challenge to each of you is, by the end of this Rotary year, by next June 2018, by July, if you, each of you, can personally attract and recruit 2 members under the age of 40, just two, under the age of 40, starting from today, so anyone before today didn't count, but starting from today until June 30th, 2018. If you can just do 2, and you text me their names and their photos over WhatsApp, I'm going to make sure that I get to you an exclusive and amazing dragon slaying fellowship lapel pin. Yeah, we love pins in Rotary, right? So is it the reason why you're going to go out there and recruit 2 people? No, it's not. The reason why you're going to do that is because we love this organization, but it's going to be a symbol. A reason for you to share your story, but a symbol, because I'm not advertising this to everyone in the world. It's going to be a symbol of our friendship, because we're best friends, of the fact that we're in the Rotary family together. So my number, I'm going to give it to you. It's not on there or anything, so if you don't have it open, then you'll just miss out. But it's +1 510 386 7026. So one more time, +1 510 386 7026. Send me on WhatsApp a message right now and say, Mitty, I accept your challenge. And then make sure you also tell me your name and your district and club. And I promise you, sometime in the next 7 days, give me some time please, I will personally respond back. I'll remind you what the challenge is. And when you're ready, when you recruit those new members, send me that message. If you're going to be in Toronto, I'll be there, I'll meet you there with the pin. If not, I'll mail it to you. So when you're done, I'll ask you for your mailing address. You know, we have to work together if we want to get to Bhaskar's 1% goal, 1% of India, which I learned is now a little over 1.3 billion, so we're looking at 1.3 million. And I think that's great. Now one last time, let's imagine once again, the year 2117, we're with that young girl in the history class. She's reading about Rotary, but this time instead of her heart sinking, she turns the page and her eyes brighten. They get wider. Because she learns and goes on to read that although Rotary struggled with membership in the 21st century, it was a big turning point in the mid-21st century, and by the end of the 21st century, Rotary was a 1.2 billion member organization. Clubs everywhere in the world, even places the United Nations could not access. Friends, Rotarians, Dragon Slayers, together we can make this happen. Together we can ask ourselves, what more can I do? What more can we do? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mitty Chang, for that wonderful presentation on the future of Rotary. May I request District Governor Ajay Agarwal to please come up and present a memento of thanks to Mitty Chang. And I also invite past District Governor Chesia to please propose the official vote of thanks and to present a memento to our session chair, PRID Ashok Mahajanji.